So thanks everybody for joining our third webinar. This one is called Which Solventless SKU? And really it's just a discussion and an introduction to all the different types of products that you can make through solventless extraction, especially starting from bubble hash. So it's really important as a producer to know what products are selling in your marketplace and how to make them as a solventless product. And that's what we're going to outline for a bunch of different products today, talk about different product types, how you get there, starting from solventless extraction, and what challenges might be, and then we can have a discussion and some questions at the end. So starting off with introductions, my name is Daniel Luntala. I'm the founder and CEO of Whistler Technologies. I got into the medical cannabis space in 2014 in Canada at Whistler Medical Marijuana Corporation, where we were making solventless edible oils for medical patients. And that made us want to scale up the bubble hash process and create our ice water extraction and terp reactor systems, which led to Whistler Technologies. So I also co-founded Earthwolf Farms, and we grow outdoor organic cannabis and make solventless extracts. And currently we sell bubble hash, live rosin in jars, and our edible terp reactor oils. And so we're just going to talk about the different types of solventless products you can make today. And Tyler is going to introduce himself next.
Hey guys, I'm Tyler Moss. I am the product specialist here at Whistler Technologies in senior sales. I've been with Whistler Technologies since, essentially day one, early days at WMC in 2017, into R&D and product launch in 2018-19. I come from an extraction background originally in the medical cannabis market in Canada. I started doing extracts in 2008, moving into rosin from SIFT in 2008, later 2009. So it's been a better part of over 10 years now, especially on the solventless side. So I come with a slew of experience when it comes to solventless extraction. As Dan mentioned, we're just going to go through, a few things. One of them being the market trends, where we're seeing market going right now in the concentrate world, especially with solventless, as we see that drastically increase in 2022 and, quite a big increase in 2021. Solventless advancement. So as the years have gone on, how we're able to offer a solventless SKU on the market now, make that affordable, competitive against other methods, the available SKUs and sustainability behind that SKU. So bubble hash, we're going to touch on live rosin, vape carts, edibles, tinctures, as well as the pathways in order to achieve those. And then we'll just be having a Q&A session at the end of this in order to answer any questions, go over anything you guys would like to know about in the solventless world. So that's on the agenda today.
Thank you, Tyler. So first we're going to talk about market trends. And this is just an image from Headset about the Canadian cannabis industry and the growth in different product segments from 2020 to 2021. We see growth in all product segments. The overall the legal market is growing, taking market share from the illegal market. But we had concentrates launch a bit later in Canada than the original launch of recreational for flower. So we're seeing now this massive growth in the vape and the concentrate market. And we see this in a lot of jurisdictions as they move from an early program into a mature program. We see a lot of movement in the market share into the concentrate and extracted products. So the highest growth we're seeing right now is edibles, concentrates, and vapes. Flowers and pre-roll are still growing, but not quite as much. And one thing to mention in Canada is we do have a lot of large scale outdoor growing. And this is really going to drive into those extracted products. Vape pens, there's a lot of distillate pens for very inexpensive in Canada. And the concentrates are getting quite, there's a lot of growth in that market as well in the quality of product and also a drop in price. So that's really going to drive the growth of these segments as the cost to produce them drops and they become more accessible for consumers. And so now thinking of this as an early program, Tyler's going to talk about, some market share of concentrates in different states and provinces.
Yeah, so as Dan mentioned, as we see a more mature market, come to be, we do see concentrates arise, and that's clearly stated as we see those trends. So we have a display of states and provinces here, what that concentrate market share is looking like in 2022. And as you can see, the states that have come online early, recreational days, have been around for a long time. They also have larger populations too, are leading the way in those concentrates and paving paths. We see, a lot of the provinces start to catch up a little bit in Canada. In general, the US still sells more concentrates than Canada does in a whole. But we do see the new states coming online start to jump into the early trends that they see in the developed markets instead of taking the typical routes. So, Missouri that just came online and stuff, we've had a lot of phone calls with solventless operations there instead of going into a typical solvent route that we had seen in, early days in Colorado or something like that. So it's interesting to see as more market shares come online, what they're looking at, if the trend is currently, and where that's looking to in the future.
Yeah, and I think you also see in very strict regulation environments like Canada, a lower concentrate with less innovation.
Yeah, that's right. So the concentrate segment by market share, Canada is unique against the states in the hash category. Quebec and Ontario and Canada play a massive role in the hash market for Canada. We had a huge black market hash ruling too on that side of the country, and you do in the States too, but it's not as predominant in the legal markets yet. So we see hash as especially traditional hashes as a large segment in the concentrates. For Canada, less so in the States. Shatter being a big one in the States, and this obviously came from early days of butane extraction, and it's starting to catch up. I will mention that as solventless becomes more desired, that I feel shatter is going to be considered more of a consistency, as you can offer a solventless shatter. Live resin has done really well over the last few years. It's a desired product. As live rosin has followed that, you do see that is the most demanded concentrate in the States, as well as I would argue probably the most demanded concentrate in Canada as well, if you look at combining vape carts with that live resin category. And then we have rosin there. So rosin is leading in Canada, States is slowly catching up, and I think that is a contributor to our solventless world here in Canada and the hash factor that we have. So we have lots of hash, which equates to making lots of rosin in a sense.
So going through all that market data, if you're thinking about launching solventless products or any product, you really need to know what's selling in your jurisdiction, and that's going to determine the type of equipment you need to make it. And talking about equipment, we've had a lot of advancements on the solventless front in the last few years. This is, of course, with our own Whistler Technologies ice water extraction equipment, but also other equipment for pressing rosin at larger scale and even packaging rosin because of its unique consistency. There hasn't been a lot of machines for filling it, and now we're really seeing a lot of movement in the market for equipment for solventless. And what this is really going to mean overall is reducing the cost of solventless for consumers and making it a more competitive category. You see live resin selling way more than rosin at this point, and I think that has to do a lot with price, as the price of rosin is often twice as high as live resin. And one of our goals at Whistler Technology was to normalize the price of concentrates, make them affordable for everybody. And that's what the push for more technology is really about, is getting the price of those concentrates down so they can really take over the whole market. We all are believers in solventless extracts and concentrates as being superior in effect and taste. So the increase in technology and also knowledge and expertise is increasing solventless products, and also be growing into different product types. So one of our innovations was the terp reactor system to make terpene retained edible oils from wet bubble hash. And then you're seeing a lot of other products, like you're seeing live rosin edibles and other things coming into the market right now. And so we're really excited about the future of solventless that is going to involve all sorts of different product types, from smokables to edibles. And Tyler is going to go over a nice diagram we have with a lot of info, just showing everything you can do with solventless.
Yeah, so as we mentioned, looking at market share and understanding what products you're ultimately going to want to sell into that, market is vitally important in solventless. In solventless operations, we are at the mercy of the genetic and the grower. So the flower that we end up with is going to ultimately determine what our end product goal should be, or vice versa. So if you're, we had mentioned Peter there, you're looking at, infused pre-rolls, for example, or you're looking at live rosin carts. Well, those might have different genetics or different pathways to achieve the most efficient way to get there. So we have this beautiful little chart, and this kind of shows the pathway process flow map of everything we can do in the solventless extraction method today. This should cover, anything that's available on the market, and arguably the best way to achieve that. So in solventless, we can start with a fresh frozen input or a dry input. This, of course, is going through a bubble hash process, but of course there's dry sift methods too. From the hash, we have our WT Craft. In this model, we have two options. You can either dry that hash in a freeze dryer, or air drying is typically what's done, or we can keep that wet hash in our proprietary terp reactor and go to an oil. So if you're looking to make, let's say, a butter or a live rosin, that's going to come from a dry hash. As you can see in the top there, we have a dry hash. You're going to go to a rosin press, and then you have a few different routes. From that rosin press, live rosin is obviously going to be pressed out and go right to retail, or you can choose to maybe go through a secondary process, maybe a mechanical whip or something sort of like that, is going to bring it into a butter, wax, crumble consistency. It may go into a vacuum oven or another process in order to get into a rosin cart, an isolate, jam, sauces, things like that. So that whole SKU, and what we look at in the solvent markets with diamonds and sauces and crumbles and waxes and all these consistencies, is what we talk about them more so than products. Those are all available in the solventless process map in order to achieve that, and arguably could be a more desired product at that end result, depending on your consumer. Going to edibles and topicals. Rosin edibles have really swept in the market this year. There's been a big push for those, and rightfully so, for effects and flavors, if you can combine those properly. So instead of going to rosin, we do have our terp reactor process. It's proprietary to us. That'll allow us to go from wet bubble hash right out of that system into the terp reactor, go through an infusion and decarb process, and have a formulated infused oil ready to go. So technically speaking, go from a fresh frozen input to an infused oil in 24 hours without losing any of the terpenes that you would in a drying stage. And that can be further put into tinctures, edibles, topicals, or maybe go to a nano emulsification for a beverage and such. So solventless has come a long way in its pathway and process. The efficiency on how to achieve that product is there. And, there's a desired result to get there. So I think as this all comes together, you'll see solventless more arise in the categories as they become more competitive with the solvent brothers.
Thanks, Tyler. So, bubble hash is the main starting point for most all of our solventless products. Of course, as Tyler said, you could be doing dry sifting or pressing flower rosin, but those are generally smaller parts of the market, and most of what we are dealing with is from bubble hash. And the first point, Tyler had brought this up before, one of the most important things with bubble hash is your genetic selection. If you're getting into a solventless offering a solventless SKU, you should probably find a plant that's good for solventless, bred for solventless, or is giving you a good yield. So we've seen from our farm differences between 1% to 5% yield of dry hash from fresh frozen. So choosing that high quality hash cultivar is getting you a better yield, and often that better yield is better material than the low yielders. So you really have compounding gains or losses in solventless. So having the right genetics is the most important starting point. And then you have to decide how to fractionate bubble hash up. Using our Craft Plus system, anybody can really make amazing quality bubble hash, but really the art and some of the skill in the process is deciding which of those high quality fractions should go into making rosin and then go to edibles or pressed hash or something else. So you can split things up by micron size, or you can also split things up by the time of extraction. And so that's where a lot of the art and the skill of the operator comes into determining how the end product looks, is how you choose those fractions. And so that's really important. You know, when we talk about knowing your market, we saw that hash in Canada was a big market. This is mostly traditional hash. For whatever reason, 60% THC bubble hash doesn't sell nearly as well as 60% THC rosin, even when the prices are much lower for the bubble hash. So here in Canada, we see a lot of traditional hash. And if you were doing traditional hash, you'd probably want to be using dry input. And that's going to be getting you a larger throughput in your day and probably a higher yield there of material. And you're going to press in traditional hash. Obviously, if you're making live rosin, you're going to be starting from fresh frozen. So really understanding what your final products are and dialing in your whole process flow from the beginning is really important. So with that material, you could be, packaging it into infused pre-rolls, rolling it into temple balls, pressing it into bricks and cutting out squares. And all of these processes are going to come along with production challenges in the packaging and other parts of the process. And we can always help customers with coming up with a plan for post-processing of their product. And of course, one of the most well-known or the most sought after, bubble hash derivatives is, of course, live rosin, which Tyler's going to talk a bit about now.
Live rosin we've seen is the largest category, and if we include the sweep of vape carts in there, it's arguably maybe the biggest. But this is a premium product. Brands that carry a premium name or brand usually will have to carry this product and to be labeled so, and usually require or demand a higher price point. This is a representation of the plant that's grown. It's strain representative, that's correct. And it's what a consumer desires. So live rosin is really taken off in both, dabbable products and in vape carts. Process flow, previous years was, there's a lot of bottlenecks in rosin press. Thankfully now with the large scale hash equipment, large scale freeze drying, and now there are some large scale rosin presses that are very efficient on the market. Going to live rosin has competitively, if not beat out, a live resin or a comparative product in the solvent market. Storage for live rosin is something else to look at and is something that a lot of people overlook, but keeping things cool or going into retail and making sure that that's going to be a stable product or stored properly all the way through from start to finish is going to make a end result desired for that consumer. So in terms of product production challenges, live rosin's really been eliminated and really comes down to packaging, like Daniel had mentioned. So trying to get your consistencies in with batters, maybe a fresh press, could be maybe a sauce and a diamonds, and those all present different challenges, but there are solutions to those now.
Thanks, Tyler. So one of the things that's really close to our hearts is the edible oils from our terp reactor method. No, you could just be infusing bubble hash into an oil, but what we do here is use the wet hash, as Tyler has mentioned before. So in our process, we think it's very nice to pair with live rosin. So one thing about the live rosin is it's really orientated towards a more connoisseur and especially a younger demographic when we look at the market. And the edible oils, topicals, and tinctures really are in a much larger demographic and a much older demographic and in the medical market as well. And on the rosin side, as we said, choosing which grades of hash to put into your rosin is really important. If you're taking all of the hash grades you get, you could be getting a lower quality product that really doesn't have the same value in the marketplace. And what to do with the lower grades of hash has become a problem for a lot of companies. And we really believe the edibles and the tinctures are a great solution to this. So first off, using our terp reactor, you don't need to dry that extra hash. You leave it wet, you put it in the terp reactor, you keep the terpenes through the decarb into your edible final oil. And this is really nice for the medical or recreational market because it gives that strain-specific entourage effect through to that decarbed product. We have a product that we're selling here in Canada called the Zen oil, and it's a 30 ml bottle. It has 25 milligrams per ml of THC and 3 milligrams per ml of terpenes. And so we keep those terpenes through to the end product, and it's going over great with the medical patients. So what that lets you do is keep the quality of your rosin really high. You're only taking the best hash, pressing into rosin. Everything else is going into an oil, and that is a premium oil product. Now you have the best rosin on the market, and you have the best edible product on the market. So this fractionation of bubble hash between a rosin and edible oil, we think is incredibly powerful for a lot of companies and really helps them, make a more profitable business. Now, of course, this, comes along with its own challenges. You have to get into the bottling of it or the formulation and choose what the oils are. And I think a lot of the challenges on this one is knowing what to give to people. Now you end up with, instead of just a THC and a CBD oil, you're ending up with all sorts of different oils. You have your Bubba Kush oil and your BC Rockstar Acapulco Gold. Now you have strain-specific oils, and there's a lot more diversification in the market. So for medical producers, you can have a lot of different products with different effects, but now you're offering 20 SKUs instead of 2 SKUs. So you're going to have your own challenges there. But the terp reactor oil is a very stable end product. You can store it for a long time, package on demand. And on the medical front, you start with a concentrated oil, maybe 10% THC. So in medical markets like Germany, you can have a compounding pharmacy taking that concentrated oil, putting it into your tincture bottle, and then that going out to the patients. So this is a really powerful one, and our equipment is GMP compliant. So you can be making medical or even pharmaceutical products from this edible method. Now, that's not to say that the medical market won't have inhalables. It definitely will, but it's probably not going to be jars of rosin. It's going to be a measured vape pen. And Tyler's going to talk about vape pens now, which in Canada, rosin's maybe $1 million or maybe a $10 million a year in the legal market, and vapes are about 500 million. But we know we can just put rosin in vapes, and that's going to be a big thing coming up.
Yeah, I think, along with live rosin and other products that we've been making, vape carts and getting live rosin or rosin in general and vape carts has been a challenge, both in the vape cart hardware and the process in order to get into that vape cart. So we do have a few very large operations now, a couple in Cali and a few other states that are doing massive amounts, 10 kilos or so. Is kind of the operational output they're looking at into rosin carts. So hitting a scale equal to the live resin and things like that is there. This is also considered a premium product. It's convenient, it's easy to use, and as Dan mentioned, is different to the live rosin category where you have maybe connoisseurs like myself that are going to dab products. This is convenient and easy to use. And everybody, I would use it, my mom could use it, a medical patient that isn't gonna, maybe isn't able to take out a torch and a rig, that's convenient for them. So the vape cart really is the ultimate in delivery for convenience, flavor, all of that sort of thing. So we see the solventless vape carts really taking off. Consumers prefer this typically over especially a distillate vape cart. And as a brand, this really allows you to differentiate yourself from others. You're able to carry strain-specific brand, or products. They may represent your flower, or you may be able to, combine some products to do that instead of offering what we'd call, distillate and added terps to something that may be similar to everybody else's product. So process flow for the vape carts obviously has been improved. Like we had mentioned, there's large scale vape rosin presses and such now with with vacuum ovens, and we can get with the right SOP quite a lot of properly formulated rosin into a vape cart, or even into dispensing methods. I think there's been a lot of great improvement in the cart dispensing and the hardware to the carts in the last few years. We've been big fans of VapeJet and a few other guys as well on the filling side, and they've been doing great things there. So the vape carts is really the biggest category we've seen overall. I would argue maybe in the States that infused pre-rolls are probably going to creep up there, and in Canada I think that's also coming to become a much larger category. But both of those are obviously ease of use, convenience, strain specific, and they offer the product that somebody is looking for as a consumer. Obviously, we're a little biased on these sort of things, but the solventless vape carts are the biggest category by far.
Yeah, and the great thing about the solventless carts, as Tyler said, they appeal to everybody. But when you taste them, everybody realizes the quality that's there. It seems to be very apparent. And as we bring those prices down, often places you'll see over $100 a gram for solventless vape carts right now. We want to see that, $30, $40, $20 a gram. And that's when we think that we're really going to see this category start taking a lot of market share from flower and pre-rolls. So that's the future we see for this, and we're going to help all of you guys get set up to make it a reality. So now we'll take some questions. You can ask a question in the chat or put up your hand, and we can turn on the videos if people want to speak on the video. But feel free to ask a question in the chat, and we'll get to them.
There's definitely a few ways to get to into rosin carts, and that's ultimately going to depend on what you start with. So certain strains and certain different parameters are going to change that. Having enough terpenes involved in that without having to take away cannabinoids in order to hit a certain ratio or to hit a certain decarb rate. These are all things that need to be taken into consideration. So those specific things are really going to come down to optimizing the strain selection and the fastest way in order to get there. But you are correct. There are a few different ways in order to achieve a vape cart. It's not necessarily always going to a vacuum oven.
Tyler, I'm supposed to read the question first. So Tyler's answer was to Rem's question, which was, instead of putting your rosin into a vacuum oven to obtain a sauce for carts, wouldn't it be better to wait until some initial crystallization of cannabinoids in your rosin, then centrifuge out the terp layer, then keep that cold and decarb acid forms of the cannabinoids, then recombine? Rems, that would be possible. As Tyler said, not all the strains might crystallize out all the THC. It might not be a very efficient method, and the realities of the production process might make that more difficult. You can have a lower temperature vacuum oven, so you're not damaging the terps, then catch them with a cold trap and reintroduce them if you're worried about that loss. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways to go around it, and they should all, there's a lot of different ways to make a good vape cart, but we're really trying to find the one that is the most streamlined and with the least loss.
Yeah, and that would be normally in a jar anyway. So those are jar techs, Rem. So if you want more specifics on that, we're happy to help you get there or find the most efficient way for a specific strain or process.
Anyone else? The question is, what is your preferred 510 cartridge for rosin? I don't have a preferred cartridge at this time. We've been looking at a lot of different ones. And so, there's always considerations of the supply and other parts of it. But Tyler, what's your opinion?
Yeah, like you mentioned, Dan, Brian, if you want to reach out to us and with a message, that would be great. But it really depends on location, what's available to you. In Canada, for example, we have to have certain vape pens that are okayed by Health Canada, and certain states you don't. So it really depends on what's going to be available there. There are 2 or 3 that a couple of our customers have been very, very happy with, and then we have tested ourselves. So I'm happy to pass some of that information along in an email or something like that.
Questions? We'll give it another few minutes.
Yeah, Peter, we're not necessarily being product agnostic, but again, it's depends on location and stuff too. So we'd be happy to chat with you though, Peter, if you want to exchange some info, that'd be great. I just don't know location everybody and stuff all the time, so it always depends. Thanks, Shay, for tuning in, buddy. I appreciate it. Hopefully see you soon.
Okay, yeah, feel free to email Daniel at whistlertechnologies.ca or Tyler or info@whistlertechnologies.ca, and we'll get back to you for some information for Australia.
I would say, RK, that we have had some interest in Australia for carts especially, and it looks like on that side of things, that's going to go ahead. So yeah, we're definitely happy to chat with you there about that. Okay, guys, I think that's it. Just on a last note for everybody here that's available, January 13th, 14th, we will be at Lift Co. For the conference there. We will have our WT Craft Plus available. We'll be doing some demos as well as answering questions. We'll be beside the Earth Wolf Farms booth to answer some product questions and such well there. So if you're in the area in Vancouver, want to fly in, we'd be happy that you join, and answer all your questions would be fantastic.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. We'd love to see anyone at the Lift conference in Vancouver. It's a pretty fun show. There's some good after parties, and we can all go skiing in Whistler after if you want. So reach out to us if you're going to be around or want to set up a meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate it, everybody. Thanks for the love.
Have a good evening.